casket is small. Too small. That's my first coherent thought as they lower Caleb into the ground, my 9-year-old son's final resting place. My hands won't stop trembling. I've tried pressing them against my black dress, gripping them together until my knuckles turn white, even shoving them into my pockets. Nothing works. The tears flow endlessly, silent rivers down my cheeks that I no longer bother wiping away. My stomach knots with each mechanical whir of the pulley system lowering his casket, and my knees threaten to buckle beneath me. The cemetery worker nods at me, waiting for some signal that I'm ready for this moment. I'll never be ready. 8 months ago, the doctors finally named the monster stealing my son's strength. Rare blood disorder, they said, as if labeling it might make it less terrifying. Caleb took the news better than I did. His small face serious but determined as the doctor explained the treatments. "Will it hurt?" he asked, his voice steady. Sometimes the doctor answered honestly, "But we'll do everything we can to help." He never complained through 8 months of needles, transfusions, medications with names I could barely pronounce, even when his small body was ravaged by fevers that left him shaking beneath hospital blankets. He'd look up at me with those eyes so much like his father's and say, "I'm okay, Mom. Don't worry, Amazad." Now I stand alone beside his grave, the ache of their absence, a physical pain as sharp as the loss itself. My parents, who should be standing beside me. My sister Victoria, who promised she'd always be there for us. Melissa, my best friend since 3rd grade, who held my hand through my divorce but couldn't be bothered to show up today. I pull out my phone, a reflexive gesture I immediately regret. Victoria's Instagram feed loads automatically. Photos of her engagement party at the Grand Horizon Hotel flood my screen happening right now, at this exact moment. There she is, champagne glass raised, diamond glittering, our parents beaming beside her. The timestamp shows it was posted 20 minutes ago, while I was listening to the minister speak words that couldn't possibly capture who Caleb was. "Are you doing all right, dear?" I look up to see Angela, my elderly neighbor, the only person who came today. Her weathered hand rests lightly on my arm, her eyes full of genuine concern. For 18 months, she brought homemade meals to our house when I was too exhausted from hospital visits to cook. She sat with Caleb when I needed to shower or sleep. She never once treated his illness as an inconvenience. "They didn't come," I whisper, the words barely audible. Not one of them. I can't stop remembering Caleb's laugh, the real one, before the illness, when it would bubble up from somewhere deep and uncontrolled. How he'd declare at 7 years old that he was going to become a doctor to fix kids like me someday. The way he'd insist on wearing his superhero pajamas to chemo treatments because superheroes are brave, even when they're scared. "That boy loved you more than anything in this world," Angela says quietly. I nod, remembering how Ethan, my ex-husband, had set up an $850,000 college trust fund for Caleb before his company transferred him overseas. "If anything ever happens," he'd said, "you're the residual beneficiary. I know you'll honor his memory." He couldn't have known how soon those words would matter. Part of me wants to call my parents, to scream until my voice gives out. How could they choose Victoria's engagement party over their grandson's funeral? Another part feels too numb to feel anything at all. I've spent 18 months fighting for my son's life, sleeping in hospital chairs, memorizing medical terminology, advocating when doctors dismiss symptoms. Now there's nothing left to fight for. My phone buzzes with a text message. My mother's name appears on the screen. "We need to talk. Bring the trust documents tomorrow." I stare at the message, reading it twice to make sure I understand. They didn't come to Caleb's funeral, but they're interested in his trust fund? Something cold and analytical cuts through my grief for the first time today. Something doesn't add up. I type back, "I'm burying my son today." I can't talk about paperwork right now. Her response comes immediately. "Don't be dramatic, Destiny. This is important for the whole family. The whole family. The same family that couldn't spare 2 hours to say goodbye to Caleb." The reality of what's happening begins to crystallize. This isn't just about money. It's about the last thing I have from my son. His legacy. The future he'll never have. I realize with sudden clarity that I'm alone in this fight. My parents, Victoria, even Melissa, they're united, coordinating, while I'm vulnerable and isolated in my grief. What have they been planning? For how long? Angela notices my distress. What is it? I show her my mother's message, watching her face harden as she reads it. Oh dear, she says softly. They can't possibly think. I turn off my phone completely. Whatever they want, it can wait. This moment belongs to Caleb. I won't let them take that from me, too. Angela places a gentle hand on my shoulder. You're not alone, dear. I'm here. The cemetery worker approaches hesitantly. I'm sorry, but we need to finish the service. I look at Caleb's casket, suspended above the open earth. Am I supposed to walk away now? Leave him here alone? My body feels frozen, unable to take that first step away. Angela steps forward. Give her a moment, please. She's saying goodbye to her boy. The worker nods and steps back, respecting the boundary Angela has created. I reach into my pocket and pull out Caleb's favorite action figure, the one he insisted on keeping with him through every hospital stay. I kneel beside the grave and place it gently on top of his casket. I'll protect what's yours, I promise, I whisper. As I stand, something shifts inside me. Through the fog of grief, a small spark ignites. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know one thing with absolute certainty. They will not take my son's legacy without a fight. The morning after the funeral dawns gray and drizzly, matching my mood as I drive to my parents' colonial-style home in Oakwood Heights. I grip the steering wheel too tightly, my knuckles whitening with each mile closer to their house. My throat constricts at the thought of seeing them after yesterday, after they chose Victoria's engagement party over their own grandson's funeral. I park behind a familiar silver BMW. Melissa's car. Of course she's here too. The front door opens before I reach it. My father stands in the entryway, his face a practiced mask of paternal concern that doesn't reach his eyes. Destiny, come in. We've been waiting. The living room feels like a boardroom. Victoria sits primly on the cream sofa, legs crossed at the ankle, her blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Melissa perches beside her, studying her manicure with sudden fascination when I enter. My mother stands by the mantel, one hand resting on a framed family photo where we're all smiling, a performance for the camera. No one mentions Caleb. No one says they're sorry. My father doesn't waste time. He walks to the mahogany coffee table where a folder lies open, papers arranged in neat stacks. We need to reallocate the trust with Victoria as trustee. He announces, sliding a document toward me. Sign here and here. I don't reach for the pen. What are you talking about? Victoria uncrosses her legs and leans forward. Destiny, you're in no condition to manage this kind of money. We're trying to help. My mother steps closer, her voice honeyed with false sympathy. You've always been impulsive with finances. Remember that boutique you wanted to open after college? Thank goodness your father talked you out of it. I glance at Melissa, hoping for some flicker of the friendship we once shared. She meets my eyes briefly before looking away, her silence confirming her allegiance. We've already spoken with Ethan's lawyer, my father says, tapping the papers. Given your mental state, he agrees this is the prudent course. The words hit like physical blows. I pick up one of the documents, recognizing legal language about mental competency evaluations. Another page catches my eye, research on trust law dated 14 months ago, when Caleb was first hospitalized. You've been planning this since Caleb got sick. I whisper, the realization burning through me. While I was sitting beside his hospital bed, you were researching how to take his money if he died. Victoria sighs dramatically. You're exaggerating again. That's exactly why we're concerned. My father pulls out another document, sliding it across the table. If you refuse to sign, we're prepared to petition for guardianship. The court will understand that grief has compromised your judgment. The full scope of their betrayal crystallizes. They dismissed Caleb's illness for 8 months, calling me overprotective when I insisted something was seriously wrong. Now I understand why they were positioning themselves all along, waiting for the worst to happen. My world clarity of anger, not once in 8 months. Victoria tosses her head, impatient. We all grieve differently, Destiny. Some of us just handle it better. The casual cruelty of her words stuns me. For the first time, I see my family clearly not as the loving support system I've desperately tried to believe in, but as people who view Caleb and me as props in their perfect family image. Useful only when convenient. Why now, I ask? Why the sudden urgency? Victoria exchanges glances with my parents. Something passes between them, a silent communication that excludes me as it always has. Fine. You deserve to know. Victoria says finally. Robert's development company is facing some cash flow issues. The wedding might need to be postponed unless we secure additional funding. My mother fidgets with her pearl necklace, and there's the vacation property in Hilton Head. The market turned, and we're a bit extended. We're not villains, Destiny, my father says, his tone softening to the one he uses when closing business deals. We're family facing difficult circumstances. Melissa finally speaks, her voice small. My divorce will be final next month. Victoria promised me a position at Robert's company. I need this, Destiny. I have the twins to think about. I see them now, not cartoon villains, but frightened people willing to sacrifice me to maintain their lifestyles, their status, their comfort. If you don't sign, we'll have to take more drastic measures, my father warns, his kindly mask slipping. My mother reaches for my hand. After everything we've done for you and Caleb all these years, I almost laugh. What exactly have they done? Sent birthday cards with $20 bills? Called once a month to ask superficial questions about our lives? Don't make this harder than it needs to be, my father says, voice hardening. You're not thinking clearly. Victoria checks her watch. We need this resolved within 60 days before Robert's next project financing deadline. The desperation in their eyes tells me everything. They need Caleb's money, my money now, to solve their problems. I stand, gather the documents, and place them back in the folder. I need time to think, I say, heading for the door. Destiny. My father's voice carries the sharp edge I remember from childhood arguments. Don't walk away from this table. I close the front door behind me with quiet finality. In my car, I press my forehead against the steering wheel, overwhelmed by what just happened. My phone buzzes with a text from Angela. How did it go? I'm here if you need to talk. Before I can respond, another call comes through Ethan's parents. I answer with shaking hands. Destiny, dear. Martha's voice is warm with genuine concern. We just heard about the funeral. We're so sorry we couldn't be there. We were in Europe and just got the news. We love that boy so much, George adds, his voice breaking. Their grief sounds real, their concern authentic, unlike the calculated performance I just witnessed from my family. As I hang up, I remember something Ethan mentioned when setting up Caleb's trust. If you ever have questions, contact Richard Donovan. He's the best trust attorney in the state. For the first time today, I feel a flicker of hope. I'm not alone in this fight. Angela, who saw how I cared for Caleb every day. Ethan's parents, who loved him without condition. Richard Donovan, who knows exactly what Ethan intended for Caleb's money. I start the car, my decision made. I won't try to fight this battle alone. I reach for my phone and find Richard Donovan's number in my contacts. Mr. Donovan's office? A receptionist answers. I need to speak with him immediately, I say, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. It's about the Caleb Walker Trust. That same day, the law office of Richard Donovan gleamed with polished wood and leather-bound books. I clutch my folder of documents so tightly my knuckles turn white. After 2 sleepless nights researching trust law online, I'm still not sure I understand what rights I have or how my family could attempt to take Caleb's legacy from me. Richard rises from behind his mahogany desk when his assistant shows me in. He's older than I expected, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. His handshake is firm, his eyes kind but assessing. Mrs. Walker, please have a seat. I'm very sorry about your son. Thank you. My voice catches. I've heard those words dozens of times in the past week, but his tone carries genuine empathy rather than obligation. I slide the folder across his desk. These are all the documents I have about Caleb's trust. My ex-husband Ethan set it up before his company transferred him overseas. Richard opens the folder, scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. He nods occasionally, pausing to read certain sections more carefully. The silence stretches until I can't bear it. My family wants me to sign over control of the trust. They claim I'm not mentally stable enough to manage it because of my grief. The words taste bitter on my tongue. They didn't even come to Caleb's funeral. Richard looks up sharply. They didn't attend the funeral? No, my sister Victoria had her engagement party the same day. My parents and my former best friend Melissa chose to go to that instead. He removes his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. I remember when Ethan set up this trust. He was very specific about his intentions. Richard opens his desk drawer and pulls out a manila folder with Ethan's name on the tab. My breath catches. I wasn't expecting him to have separate records. Ethan was exceptionally thorough. Richard explains, extracting a notarized document. This is his statement of intent for the trust. He hands me the paper, and I read Ethan's familiar handwriting. This trust is to secure Caleb's future, and if the worst happens, to provide for Destiny, who sacrificed everything for his care. Tears blur my vision. Even from across the ocean, Ethan had prepared for this possibility, had seen what I couldn't bear to acknowledge. There's more, Richard says, turning his computer monitor so I can see it. These are phone records from our office over the past year. The spreadsheet shows multiple calls from numbers I recognize immediately, my parents' landline and Victoria's cell phone. They contacted you? About Caleb's trust? My voice sharpens. Not me specifically. They called asking about trust provisions and beneficiary laws. My assistant flagged it because she recognized the names from Ethan's file. They never actually spoke to an attorney here. A clarity cuts through my grief for the first time in days. They knew about the trust terms before Caleb died. That's why they've been planning this. It appears so, Richard says, his expression hardening. Mrs. Walker, I want to be clear about something. This trust has explicit provisions preventing family interference. Ethan. Built in multiple layers of protection specifically to ensure the funds would go to Caleb or to you as the residual beneficiary. They have no legal standing to challenge this. The trust is ironclad. The weight pressing on my chest lightens slightly, so they can't take it. Not legally, no. But they might try other tactics, claiming you're mentally unfit due to grief, for instance. I think of my mother's dismissive text message at the funeral, Victoria's cold calculation, my father's uncomfortable silence as they presented papers for me to sign. So I don't need to fight them for the trust, I say slowly, the pieces coming together. I just need to prove their intentions. Richard's eyes narrow thoughtfully. That would certainly strengthen your position. Do you have any documentation of their attempts to gain control? I pull out my phone, showing him my mother's text messages from the funeral day. His eyebrows rise as he reads. This is extremely helpful, he says. Now I suggest we arrange a meeting with your family on your terms in a public place. 2 days later, I sit at a corner table in Riverside Coffee, a manila envelope placed deliberately in front of me. The shop bustles with afternoon customers, exactly as I'd hoped. Richard's advice echoes in my mind. Public places discourage scenes, control the narrative from the beginning. Ask. Angela waits in her car across the street, ready if I need backup. Richard is on standby for a call. For the first time since Caleb's diagnosis, I don't feel completely alone. My family arrives together, Victoria leading the procession in designer sunglasses, my parents following like attendants. Melissa trails behind, avoiding my eyes. They take seats around the table without ordering drinks, clearly expecting this to be brief. Victoria immediately reaches for the manila envelope. So you've signed the papers? I knew you'd be reasonable. I place my hand firmly on the envelope. Before we discuss any papers, I want to know why none of you came to Caleb's funeral. My mother sighs dramatically. Destiny. We've been through this. Victoria's engagement was planned months ago. We couldn't cancel everything on such short notice. It was your grandson's funeral, I said quietly. And we grieved in our own way, my father replies, glancing nervously at nearby tables. Everyone processes loss differently. I open the envelope and slide out several photos, screenshots from Victoria's Instagram, time-stamped during Caleb's funeral. Champagne glasses raised, diamond ring flashing, everyone laughing. While I was burying my son, you were drinking champagne and laughing. My voice remains steady, but people at nearby tables glance over. Victoria's face flushes. You're taking those out of context. That's not fair. I pull out a second document from the envelope, the notarized trust terms with no amendment without grant or consent, highlighted in yellow. Ethan made his intentions very clear. This money is Caleb's legacy to me. My father reaches for the papers. Let me see that. I pull them back before he can grab them. I've spoken with Richard Donovan. He has Ethan's original statement of intent. The trust cannot be modified, transferred, or accessed by anyone but me. Victoria's carefully composed expression cracks. You don't deserve that money, you'll just waste it, her voice carries. Several customers turn to stare. Lower your voice, my mother hisses. Why, I ask, looking directly at Victoria. Are you worried people will hear how you tried to take advantage of your grieving sister? How you couldn't be bothered to attend your nephew's funeral but want his college fund? Victoria stands abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're trying to help you. I don't need your kind of help, I say, gathering the papers back into the envelope. I'm not signing anything, ever. My father leans forward, voice low and threatening. You're making a mistake, Destiny. We can make things very difficult for you. You already have, I reply, standing, for my entire life. But not anymore. I walk out, feeling their stares burning into my back. Outside, Angela waits in her car, window rolled down. When I slide into the passenger seat, she gives me a proud smile. You stood up to them. Good for you. My phone rings. Richard calling for an update. How did it go? He asks when I answer. Do we need to prepare for immediate legal action? I describe the confrontation while Angela drives us away from the coffee shop. Richard listens carefully, then confirms we're in a strong position legally. They'll likely try something else, he warns. But you've established boundaries, which is critical. After we hang up, another call comes through, Ethan's parents. They offer to fly in from Arizona to testify about Ethan's intentions if needed. We always knew Caleb's care was your priority, Ethan's mother says. We'll support you however we can. A text message follows from Mark, my former coworker who visited Caleb regularly during his hospital stays. Angela told me what's happening. Whatever you need, I'm here. For the first time in weeks, I feel the weight on my chest lighten. I'm not fighting alone anymore. In Angela's driveway, I take a moment before getting out of the car. I touch Caleb's photo on my dashboard, his last school picture, taken before he got sick, his smile still radiant with hope. First step done, buddy, I whisper. Angela squeezes my hand. You did wonderfully today. I nod, staring at the horizon, but they won't give up easily. They'll try something bigger next. And we'll be ready, Angela says firmly. You're not alone anymore, Destiny. I take a deep breath, feeling something unfamiliar building inside me. Not just grief, not just anger, but resolve. They couldn't be bothered to say goodbye to my son. They won't get to decide what happens to his legacy. 3 days after the coffee shop confrontation, I spread documents across Richard Donovan's mahogany desk, my hands steady as I arrange them into neat piles. Grief still pulses beneath my skin, but something else has emerged alongside it, a cold, clear objectivity that surprises me with its intensity. They'll file for guardianship, Richard says, tapping a finger against a legal brief. His office smells of leather and old books, the kind of place where battles are planned rather than fought. They'll try to prove you're mentally unfit due to grief. It's their clearest path to the trust. I nod, studying the timeline. I've created 18 months of Caleb's illness mapped out in excruciating detail. Victoria never does her own dirty work. She'll use Mom and Dad as the petitioners, maybe even Melissa. Smart observation, Richard says, genuine respect in his voice. We need to document every interaction since Caleb's diagnosis, every hospital visit you made, every appointment they missed. I pull out my phone, opening my calendar. I have records of all appointments. I can prove I never missed a single one. My voice catches slightly. Not even the day after Ethan left abroad. Richard makes a note. And your parents? Victoria, 0 visits. Not when he was diagnosed. Not during the 3 weeks he spent in isolation after the bone marrow treatment failed. The memory stings, but I push through it. Not even when the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do. Document it all, Richard says. We don't move yet. We prepare. We gather evidence. We anticipate their attack. When they come, and they will, we'll be ready. I run my finger along a hospital bill, remembering how I'd learned to decipher medical codes and challenge insurance denials. How I became Caleb's advocate when no one else would. 8 months of treatments and not one visit from them. Not one. Richard leans forward. Destiny, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about proving you're mentally competent. It's about proving they never cared about Caleb, only his money. The words hurt, but the truth in them steadies me. Then that's exactly what we'll prove. Over the next hour, we sort through financial statements, showing my meticulous handling of Caleb's medical expenses. Richard brings in a notary to witness my signing of affidavits. The preparation feels like building armor. Each document, another plate of protection around Caleb's legacy. They'll claim your grief makes you unstable, Richard warns. We need to counter that narrative before they can establish it. Angela has kept a journal, I say, surprising myself with this knowledge. She documented every time she helped with Caleb during his illness. She told me yesterday. Richard nods approvingly. Perfect. A neutral third party's observations will carry significant weight. I pull out my notebook. I've also contacted Caleb's primary oncologist and his school teacher. Both are willing to provide character statements. Excellent, Richard says. Now what about Ethan? His intention when creating the trust could be crucial. I called his parents last night. They're coordinating with his attorney to document his original intentions. The words come easily now. Each strategic move clear in my mind. And I've installed security cameras at my house. If they try to confront me again, it'll be documented. Richard makes a note. I'm consulting with Dr. Elizabeth Warner tomorrow. She's a psychiatric expert who can evaluate you and counter any mental fitness challenges they might bring. I hesitate before sharing my next thought. I've been collecting screenshots. Every time they dismissed Caleb's illness as nothing serious, every text where they claimed I was overreacting. My voice hardens. They created a pattern of minimizing his condition while simultaneously planning to take his trust fund. That's exactly the kind of evidence we need, Richard says quietly. Not just to defend you, but to expose their motives. I stare out his office window at the autumn leaves dancing across the parking lot. Caleb loved fall the colors, the smell of cinnamon, the way leaves crunched beneath his feet. Last October, I'd wheeled him outside the hospital just so he could feel the crisp air on his face. Are you all right? Richard asks. Just remembering, I say, returning to the present. What else do we need? As Richard outlines our next steps, my phone buzzes with a text from Angela. Just heard from Martha at the hospital. Melissa was asking questions about Caleb's treatment schedule. Be careful. My stomach tightens. I show Richard the message. They're gathering ammunition, he says grimly. Melissa would have access to information about when you were at the hospital, your emotional state during treatment. She's signed something, hasn't she? The realization hits me like a physical blow. An affidavit claiming I was unstable during Caleb's illness. Richard's silence confirms my suspicion. She was my friend since third grade, I whisper, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. She held my hand through my divorce. Victoria is recruiting anyone with inside knowledge of your life, Richard says gently. It raises the threat level considerably. I remember now Melissa's increasingly infrequent visits as Caleb's condition worsened. Her uncomfortable expression when I broke down after a particularly devastating prognosis, the way she'd stopped meeting my eyes in those final weeks. She'll claim she witnessed erratic behavior, I say, my voice hollow, and she wouldn't be entirely wrong. I did fall apart sometimes. Who wouldn't? For the first time since our strategy session began, doubt creeps in. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am falling apart. I glance at my trembling hands. Look at me. Don't, Richard says firmly. This is exactly what they want to make you doubt yourself. My phone buzzes again. Angela, coming by Richard's office, found my journals. You need to see these. 4 minutes later, Angela walks in carrying a stack of notebooks. Her silver hair is neatly pinned back, her eyes fierce with protective energy. Melissa can say whatever she wants. Angela announces, placing the journals on Richard's desk, but I documented everything. Every day you spent at that hospital. Every night you sat up with Caleb when he couldn't sleep. Every meal I brought because you wouldn't leave his side. She takes my hands in hers. Don't let them make you doubt yourself, Destiny. That's exactly what they want. The warmth of her hands steadies mine. I look from Angela to Richard, then to the mountain of evidence we've accumulated. My son's legacy protected by truth, documented fact by documented fact. You're right, I say, straightening my shoulders. I need to prepare for character assassination, not just legal challenges. As I organize Angela's journals into our evidence pile, I realize we're building more than a legal defense. We're creating a monument to the truth of who really stood by Caleb when it mattered and who didn't. Later that evening, after Angela left, my hands shook as I taped the last photo to the evidence board in Richard's office. It shows my parents at Victoria's engagement party, champagne glasses raised in celebration exactly 42 minutes after Caleb's casket was lowered into the ground. That's the final piece, Richard says, stepping back to survey our work. The conference room wall has transformed into a comprehensive timeline of betrayal. Medical records showing every appointment I attended, financial statements proving responsible management of Caleb's medical expenses, witness statements from hospital staff, neighbors, and Caleb's teachers, a documented 18-month absence of my family during Caleb's illness. Will it be enough? I ask, straightening a document that details Victoria's unauthorized access to Caleb's medical files. Richard adjusts his glasses, his expression serious but confident. They'll file for emergency guardianship claiming you're mentally unfit. But we've anticipated every argument they could make. He taps the notarized statement from Ethan's parents. This alone makes their position legally tenuous. I trace my finger along the timeline we've created. 8 months of hospital visits, countless nights sleeping in uncomfortable chairs beside Caleb's bed. The treatments, the hopes, the setbacks, all documented with meticulous care. I never thought I'd need to prove I was a good mother. I whisper, "You shouldn't have to," Richard says, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. But people who want what isn't theirs will create whatever narrative serves them. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a text from Angela. I read it aloud. 23 neighbors signed the character petition. A small victory, but each one strengthens our position. I've spent the past week gathering an arsenal of truth against my family's inevitable attack. Security cameras now monitor my home, recording any uninvited visits. I've documented every text, every voicemail, every social media post where Victoria subtly questions my mental state. They're painting me as unstable, I say, staring at Victoria's recent Facebook post asking for prayers for family members struggling with mental health issues after loss. The comments section overflows with sympathetic responses, none mentioning that she didn't attend her nephew's funeral. Richard nods grimly. Classic strategy. They can't win on legal grounds, so they're trying to win in the court of public opinion first. The phone on his desk rings. Richard answers, his expression darkening as he listens. I see. Thank you for letting us know. He hangs up and turns to me. That was my contact at Memorial Hospital. Someone requested Caleb's complete medical records yesterday. My stomach drops. Who? Victoria used an old emergency contact form to gain access. The room seems to tilt slightly. They'll twist everything, I say, my voice rising. They'll find the one time I questioned a medication dosage, or got emotional with a nurse and use it to make me look incompetent. They're getting desperate, Richard says. This confidentiality breach shows how far they're willing to go. I grip the edge of the table to steady myself. What else are they doing that we don't know about? Richard opens his laptop. Let's find out. He types quickly, then turns the screen toward me. They've been calling your former colleagues at the marketing firm. A LinkedIn message from my old supervisor appears. Destiny, your sister called asking about your emotional stability during your employment. What's going on? Call me. They're building a case against me on every front, I say, the anger finally breaking through my grief. They're trying to erase everything I did for Caleb. Richard closes the laptop. We need to add a defamation counterclaim to our strategy. This goes beyond the trust now. They're attacking your reputation. I think of Caleb's brave face during treatments, how he never complained even on his worst days. If my 9-year-old could face down death with courage, I can face down my family with the same resolve. Let them try. I say, my voice steadier than it's been in weeks. We have something they don't. What's that? Richard asks. The truth, I answer, turning back to our evidence board. Every moment I spent with Caleb, every decision I made for him, every sacrifice, it's all here. They can't erase that. Richard nods approvingly. I'll update our legal response package to include their recent actions. By night, we've refined our strategy, accounting for Victoria's escalating tactics. Richard confirms, our legal response is complete, character witnesses prepared, evidence organized, counterclaims ready. Angela calls as I'm driving home. The security system is working perfectly, she tells me. I tested it once again while you were gone. Thank you, I say, feeling a rush of gratitude for this woman who's become more family to me than my actual relatives. Ethan's parents arrive tomorrow. They're bringing documentation about the trust's original purpose. You've done everything possible to protect Caleb's legacy, Angela says firmly. Now we wait for them to make their move. As I pull into my driveway, I realize something has shifted inside me. The paralyzing grief hasn't disappeared, but it's been joined by something else, a fierce, protective anger that burns away the fog of despair. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm angry, and I'm ready. The next morning, the sheriff's knock hits like a hammer. When I open the door, his face is professionally blank as he extends a thick manila envelope. Destiny Walker, you've been served. My fingers tremble as I take it. The weight feels wrong, too heavy for mere paper, too light for the destruction it contains. The sheriff tips his hat and leaves while I stand frozen in my doorway, the envelope burning against my skin. Inside, I spread the documents across my kitchen table and scan the heading, Emergency Petition for Guardianship. My stomach lurches. They're not just coming for Caleb's money anymore. They want control of me. The phone rings. Richard. They filed, I say, my voice hollow. I know, just got the notification. How are you holding up? I stare at the affidavits attached to the petition. Melissa's signature jumps out first 3 pages, detailing every moment of weakness she witnessed during Caleb's illness, the times I forgot to eat. The night I sobbed uncontrollably in the hospital hallway. The morning I couldn't remember if I'd taken my own medication. They've twisted everything. I whisper they quoted his medical records. Things I told the doctors in confidence. Victoria shouldn't have had access to those files, Richard says, his voice hardening. That's our countermove. The hospital ethics committee is already investigating. I flip to the next page, financial statements showing my depleted savings account. And months without steady income while caring for Caleb had drained everything. They've highlighted every overdraft fee, every late payment, presenting it as evidence of financial irresponsibility rather than the reality of a mother spending everything to save her son. The hearing is tomorrow, Richard says. We knew this was coming. We're ready, but I'm not sure I am. This isn't just about money anymore. They're trying to take away my autonomy, my dignity, my very identity as a competent adult. The document before me paints a picture of a woman falling apart, unable to make rational decisions, a danger to herself without proper supervision. Have you seen the newspaper? Richard asks quietly. I pull up the local news website on my phone. There they are, my parents, sitting in their immaculate living room, sorrow etched into their carefully composed expressions. The headline makes me nauseous. Family seeks help for grieving mother. My father's quote appears in bold. This breaks our hearts, but we have to protect her from herself. I switch to social media and find Victoria's carefully crafted post, a throwback photo of us as children, her arm around my shoulders. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is step in when someone you love is suffering. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. Mental health awareness. Family first. The comment section overflows with support for them. People who don't know us, don't know Caleb, offering prayers and praise for their bravery in helping me. They've already tried and convicted me in the court of public opinion. I say, courts don't decide cases based on Instagram likes, Richard replies. I've filed our counterpetition. Ethan's parents arrived this morning. They're ready to testify about his intentions for the trust. The hospital ethics committee has issued a formal statement about the unauthorized access to Caleb's records. I touch the silver locket around my neck, feeling Caleb's photo inside. What if it's not enough? It will be, Richard says with quiet confidence. Angela has more than 20 neighbors coming to support you. Your former supervisor has submitted a statement about your professionalism. And Dr. Levine, Caleb's primary physician, has provided an affidavit praising your medical decision-making throughout his treatment. My phone pings with a text from Angela. We're all set for tomorrow. The whole block is behind you. For the first time since receiving the sheriff's papers, I feel something beyond fear, a spark of determination, fueled by the absurdity of their claims. They weren't there, any of them. Not for one chemo treatment, not for one blood transfusion, not for one night when Caleb's fever spiked to 104, and I thought I might lose him right there in the pediatric oncology unit. I've also submitted the security footage, Richard continues, showing Victoria and your mother trying to enter your house last week when you were meeting with me. I remember coming home to find the doorbell camera notification, watching the recording of them testing doorknobs, peering through windows. We're hitting back with everything, Richard says. The restraining order request has been included in our counterpetition. I look at the documents spread across my table, their lies printed on legal letterhead, made official with court stamps and case numbers. Tomorrow, a judge will read these words and make decisions about my life based on them. Get some rest, Richard advises. Tomorrow's going to be intense, but rest doesn't come. I'm reviewing my testimony for the 4th time when the doorbell camera alert flashes on my phone at 9:48 p.m. Victoria stands on my porch, alone. I consider ignoring her, but something tells me to face this. I activate the recording function on my phone before opening the door, keeping the security chain latched. What do you want, Victoria? She looks different than at the coffee shop confrontation, softer somehow, her expression concerned rather than confrontational. If I didn't know better, I might believe she actually cares. Can I come in? Just to talk? She asks, her voice gentle. No. Her shoulders drop slightly. Destiny, please. This doesn't have to be so public, so ugly. You made it public when you gave that interview. You made it ugly when you accessed Caleb's private medical records. Victoria glances toward the security camera, clearly aware she's being recorded. I'm offering you one last chance to avoid public embarrassment. Drop your opposition to the guardianship petition. Sign over control of the trust to me as administrator. We'll withdraw the petition and no one ever has to know about your episodes. The word hangs between us like poison. Episodes? The night you called Melissa at 3 a.m., hysterical about Caleb's breathing. The time the hospital nearly called child services because you couldn't remember when he'd last taken his medication. Her voice remains sympathetic, but her eyes are cold. We'll destroy your reputation completely. Everyone will know how unstable you are. I feel a strange calm settling over me. I think you should leave now, Victoria. Her mask slips then, just for a moment, but it's enough. Rage flashes across her features before she composes herself. You think you deserve that money? You were always the burden. The problem child. The disappointment. She leans closer to the door. We carried you your entire life. Now it's time you did something for this family. I close the door without another word, my hands steady for the first time today. I immediately call Richard, forwarding him the recording. Perfect, he says after listening. Her mask finally slipped. This is exactly what we needed. It's past midnight when Angela arrives with an overnight bag. I thought you could use some company, she says, setting a thermos of tea on my kitchen table. Thank you, I whisper, unsure if I can explain how much her presence means. Tomorrow we show them what real strength looks like, she says, squeezing my hand. My phone lights up with a text from Richard. Everything is ready. Ethan believed in you, so do we. I can't sleep, so I sit in Caleb's room instead, holding his favorite stuffed dinosaur. The glow-in-the-dark stars we stuck to his ceiling still shine faintly. I take out my locket and open it to see his smiling face. Tomorrow is for you, buddy, I whisper to his photo. For your legacy. For the first time since the sheriff knocked on my door, I feel something beyond fear or determination. I feel ready. The next morning, I enter the courtroom with my head high, flanked by Richard, Angela, and Ethan's parents. The polished wood and solemn atmosphere remind me of a church, a temple where truth should matter more than performance. Victoria, my parents, and Melissa sit on the opposite side, their faces arranged in expressions of practiced concern. My stomach knots as I take my seat. It's been 48 hours since the sheriff served me with papers claiming I'm mentally unfit to manage my own affairs, let alone my son's legacy. Richard squeezes my arm gently as we settle at the defendant's table. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marion Peabody. A stern-faced woman in her 60s enters, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She reviews the emergency petition with narrowed eyes before addressing the courtroom. These are serious allegations. I expect both sides to present evidence, not emotion. Her gaze sweeps across both tables. Mr. Harrington, you may begin for the petitioners. Now, sight of calls. My family's attorney rises, his expensive suit and confident posture reflecting their certainty they'll win. Your Honor, this is a case of a family desperately trying to help a daughter and sister who is spiraling after an unimaginable loss. He walks toward the bench, presenting documents with practiced solemnity. Miss Walker has exhibited concerning behavior since her son's passing. Erratic financial decisions, isolation, refusal to accept help from those who love her most. I clench my fists under the table as he continues painting me as unstable and dangerous to myself and Caleb's money. When Melissa takes the stand, my chest tightens. Destiny changed during Caleb's illness. She testifies, avoiding my eyes. She became obsessive about treatments, paranoid that doctors were missing something. She'd call me at 3 a.m, hysterical. The memory of those nights slashes through me sitting beside Caleb's hospital bed. Terrified Ash's fever spiked, reaching out to someone I thought was my friend. My isolation wasn't paranoia. It was abandonment by the people testifying against me now. My mother takes the stand next, dabbing at tears that appear on command. We're heartbroken watching her self-destruct. This isn't about money, it's about protecting our daughter when she can't protect herself. The judge's expression softens at my mother's performance. A cold wave of fear washes over me. She's buying their act. Then Richard stands and everything shifts. Your Honor, what we're witnessing today is not concern, but calculation. His voice fills the courtroom with quiet authority. Miss, Walker hasn't self-destructed. She's been systematically targeted by family members who abandoned her during her son's illness, but suddenly appeared when they learned of his trust fund. He begins methodically dismantling their case, presenting complete hospital records that chronicle every appointment I attended, every treatment decision I researched and approved, every night I slept in a hospital chair. Now I'd like to call Miss Catherine Winters, Hospital Records Administrator. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes takes the stand and confirms what Richard suspected. Our system shows Miss Victoria Walker accessed Caleb's complete medical records 2 weeks ago, using an outdated emergency contact form. This constitutes a serious privacy violation. Victoria shifts uncomfortably in her seat as whispers ripple through the courtroom. Angela testifies next, her steady voice carrying decades of wisdom. I watched Destiny care for that boy every single day. When he couldn't keep food down, she researched what might help and stayed up learning to prepare meals that wouldn't make him sick. When he was scared about treatments, she created superhero stories to help him understand what was happening. Her eyes find mine. I never once saw her falter. Ethan's father, Robert, takes the stand next. Though we've never been close, his testimony is clear and certain. My son established this trust with explicit instructions. He told me, Dad, if anything happens to Caleb, Destiny gets everything. She sacrificed her career, her savings, everything to give him the best care possible. She'll honor his memory better than anyone. The judge's expression has changed, her eyes sharper, more focused on my family now. Your Honor, Richard says, I'd like to present one more piece of evidence. He plays the security recording from last night, Victoria's unannounced visit to my home. Her voice fills the courtroom. We'll destroy your reputation completely. Everyone will know how unstable you are. My calm response follows. I think you should leave now, Victoria. Victoria's true colors emerge in her next words. You think you deserve that money? You were always the burden. My sister's face flushes deep red. My mother's hand flies to her mouth. My father stares straight ahead, his jaw tight. The judge calls a 15-minute recess. When she returns, Victoria attempts to speak, but Judge Peabody silences her with a sharp gesture. Mr. Donovan, do you have additional evidence? Richard nods. One final exhibit, Your Honor. He plays an audio recording from our coffee shop meeting. The voices are crystal clear. My mother, once the guardianship is approved, we can settle Victoria's mortgage situation. Victoria and the beach house repairs. The contractor needs $50,000 by next month. My father, once we have guardianship, we can use the money however we want. Destiny won't have any say. The courtroom falls silent. My family's attorney shifts papers aimlessly, clearly unprepared for this revelation. Judge Peabody calls another brief recess. When she returns, her expression has hardened into granite. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter. This court finds no basis whatsoever for the emergency guardianship petition. In fact, what I see is deeply disturbing, a coordinated attempt to exploit a grieving mother for financial gain. Victoria starts to protest, but the judge cuts her off. Ms. Victoria Walker, I strongly suggest you remain silent. This court dismisses the petition with prejudice, meaning the petitioners cannot refile on these grounds. Furthermore, I am ordering an investigation into possible perjury by Melissa Bennett and Charles and Elaine Walker, whose testimonies directly contradict documented evidence. The judge continues, each word hitting like a hammer blow. I am granting an immediate restraining order prohibiting all petitioners from contacting Destiny Walker. The trust will be unfrozen, immediately and secured against further challenges. Victoria's composure finally cracks. Her face contorts as she tries to maintain dignity while her plans crumble. My mother begins crying real tears this time. My father stares ahead, his expression frozen in disbelief. Ms. Walker, the judge says, looking directly at me, this court finds you have acted with remarkable strength and clarity during an unimaginable loss. Your son would be proud of how you've protected his legacy. My parents and Victoria rise, attempting to approach me, but a bailiff steps between us, enforcing the new restraining order. Richard turns to me, his professional demeanor softening. The system worked today, Destiny. Justice was done. Angela's eyes shine with tears. Caleb would be so proud of you, dear. Ethan's parents embrace me, his mother whispering, You've honored our grandson and our son today. As I leave the courtroom, I touch Caleb's photo in my locket. The small silver frame holds his last school picture, grinning despite having lost his hair to chemo. His eyes bright with the determination that carried him through 18 months of fighting. Reporters wait outside, microphones extended. A month ago, I would have ducked my head and hurried past. Today, I stop. Mrs. Walker, how do you feel about the court's decision? I straighten my shoulders, feeling stronger than I have since the day we received Caleb's diagnosis. Today, justice was done for my son. As cameras flash, I walk toward the future Caleb would have wanted for me, one where his memory isn't just preserved, but honored through strength he helped me discover. The trust fund isn't just money, it's his legacy, and I've proven worthy of protecting it. The financial advisor slides a folder across his mahogany desk. These investment options would create sustainable funding for the scholarship program while preserving the principal, he explains. I study the numbers, no longer intimidated by financial jargon. 1 week since the hearing, and already the world feels different. The Pediatric Hematology Fellowship needs to be fully funded, I say, tapping the proposal. That's non-negotiable. The advisor nods, making notes. And the restraining order? Holding firm? They can't come within 1,000 feet. My voice doesn't waver anymore when I mention my family. Strange how quickly family has become an administrative term rather than an emotional one. The local paper published a front-page story yesterday. Mother vindicated in trust battle. I've received dozens of supportive calls and messages. Even Victoria's fiancé called to apologize before announcing their engagement was off. My parents face possible perjury charges, and Melissa was fired after her recorded testimony circulated through her workplace. When I leave the advisor's office, Angela waits in her ancient Buick, window rolled down despite the autumn chill. All set, she asks. All set. I slide into the passenger seat, remembering all those rides to and from the hospital with Caleb. How Angela would bring thermoses of homemade soup when cafeteria food became unbearable. How she'd sit with him while I showered or napped. Never thought I could do this, I admit as we drive. Stand up to them. Create something lasting. Angela pats my hand. I knew. From the moment you placed that action figure in his grave and made that promise. That night, I sleep peacefully for the first time since Caleb's diagnosis. No nightmares of hospital corridors or beeping machines. Instead, I dream of Caleb laughing, whole and strong, running through sunlit fields. Richard calls the next morning. The foundation paperwork is filed. The trust is locked down tight. Not even the Supreme Court could touch it now. My neighbors organize a meal train. Every evening, someone appears at my door with casseroles, soups, fresh bread, small kindnesses that would have overwhelmed me with gratitude, before now feel like confirmation of something I'm slowly beginning to understand. Family isn't always blood. I pull out a photo of Caleb. Not a hospital photo, but one from before, at the beach, his smile wide beneath a baseball cap. For the first time, I can look at it without dissolving into tears. I know what to do with your legacy now, buddy, I whisper. 6 months later, I stand in the pediatric blood disorder unit where Caleb spent so many hours. The walls are brighter now, painted with underwater scenes that Caleb would have loved. A plaque beside the nurse's station reads, Caleb Walker Memorial Wing. A young nurse approaches, extending her hand. I'm Jennifer Abrams, the first Caleb Walker scholar. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity to specialize in pediatric hematology. Caleb would have been thrilled, I say, and realize I'm smiling as I speak about him. Not the tight, painful smile of someone holding back tears, but a genuine expression of joy at his memory. He wanted to be a doctor himself someday. The foundation is making such a difference, Jennifer says. 3 families have received emergency housing assistance already. The Caleb's Legacy Foundation now supports families facing the same battles we fought, covering expenses insurance won't, providing emergency housing near hospitals, funding specialized training for pediatric nurses. Each board meeting brings new possibilities for expanding our reach. Angela serves as volunteer coordinator, organizing a network of people who provide meals, transportation, and childcare for families with hospitalized children. Richard handles all legal matters pro bono, ensuring the foundation's stability. You've created something beautiful from something tragic, Ethan's mother tells me during her monthly visit. She and her husband have become grandparent advocates, helping other grandparents navigate the medical system when their grandchildren fall ill. I find myself speaking at support groups, Mentoring parents new to the terrifying world of childhood chronic illness. The first step is believing you can do this. I tell them. The second is knowing you don't have to do it alone. My voice no longer shakes when I speak in public. My hands no longer tremble when I sign documents. The woman who stood frozen at her son's grave has become someone else entirely. Someone stronger. Someone Caleb would be proud of. 1 year to the day after Caleb's funeral, I return to the cemetery. The path feels different under my feet. No longer a march toward unbearable grief, but a purposeful visit to a place of connection. I place fresh flowers by his headstone, tracing the letters of his name with my finger. The morning sun warms the granite. "Excuse me?" a voice calls. A woman approaches with a little girl around 7 holding her hand. "Are you Destiny Walker?" I nod, standing to greet them. "I'm Sarah Mitchell. This is my daughter, Emma." The woman's eyes shine with unshed tears. "Emma was diagnosed with the same condition as your son last year. The specialist funded by your scholarship program found a treatment protocol that worked when nothing else would. Your son's legacy saved my daughter's life." Emma steps forward, shy but determined. "Thank you for helping me get better." I kneel to her level, seeing in her face the future Caleb never had. "You're very welcome, Emma." Standing again, I share Caleb's story not with pain but with pride. Fighting for his legacy transformed me, I explain. I found strength I never knew I had. Sarah listens intently. "The foundation is expanding?" "Yes. We're funding research into rare blood disorders starting next quarter. Angela's joining the board officially, and Richard's structuring the research grants. Ethan's parents are heading up the grandparent advocacy program. When they leave, I reach into my pocket and pull out Caleb's favorite action figure, the same one I'd placed in his grave a year ago. The cemetery worker had retrieved it for me after the service. Understanding my immediate regret at parting with it, I place it gently against his headstone. "I kept my promise, Caleb. Your legacy is safe and growing stronger every day." Standing in the same spot where I once felt utterly abandoned, I'm surrounded by the presence of those who've become my true family, not bound by blood, but by something stronger. Choice, loyalty, and love. "The family that matters isn't always the one you're born into," I say softly to Caleb. "It's the one that stands beside you when you need them most." Angry. As I walk back to my car, the morning sun warm on my face, I realize something profound. Sometimes the deepest betrayal leads to the most powerful transformation. I'm not just surviving now, I'm living the life that honors everything Caleb taught me about courage.